Okay, let's talk about this insane lineup coming to River City Wrestling Con 2025 because it is stacked. First of all, Mr. Style and Profilin', the Nature Boy himself, Ric Flair, will be there for the first time ever. Then you've got Bret Hart, literally one of the greatest to ever do it. Kane is pulling up too, so yeah, you have Hellfire and Brimstone Energy coming in hot. And if that wasn't enough, we've got Kurt Angle, Olympic gold medalist, icon, legend. It's true, it's damn true. Let's not forget the almighty Bobby Lashley will be in the building as well. And the Big Show, literally a giant part of wrestling history. Plus a whole bunch more like Rob Van Dam, Katie Forbes, Tay Mello, Sergeant Slaughter, and still more names to come. River City Wrestling Con 2025 is going to be wild. There will be live wrestling, meet and greets, Q&A sessions, all of it. Tickets are flying, so if you don't have yours yet, don't wait, or you're gonna be sitting at home, all sad with FOMO, while all of your friends are meeting the legends. It's all going down in the historic city of St. Augustine, June 7th and 8th, so see you there.
Devon and the Duke bring the heat. Wrestling tales knock you off your seat. Tune in now, don't you be late. Wrestling podcast never felt this great. Tables, ladders, chairs, they tell it all. From the highest highs to the lowest fall. Great and glory tales from the ring. Every chant, every cheer they'll bring. Devon and the Duke bring the heat. Wrestling tales knock you off your seat. Tune in now, don't you be late. Wrestling podcast never felt this great.
Brothers and sisters, welcome back. Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Devon The Duke podcast. This is a limited edition series hosted by your main man, Duke Loves Wrestling, and of course, the five-time Hall of Famer, one of the greatest of all time, the man that is the YouTube sensation, Mr. Devon Dudley. What's going on, brother?
Same old, just still living the dream, man. Trying to at least.
Listen, you got a big booking coming up, man, with the River City Wrestling Con next week, huh?
Yes, my sons will be there. They'll be wrestling, things like that, and I'm excited about it. And there's a lot of things going on that week, and I'm very excited about it.
It's interesting to be at these conventions, and your sons are there as well. So it's really a family affair. I mean, how does that feel to have them out there, and you get to see all your brothers from yesterday and today and what have you? Just it's almost like everybody's in the same place, right?
I mean, that's what it is. I mean, it really is. It's anytime you can go to these events, we basically, have really a good time because it's one of those things where you know, we know we're gonna see each other. We haven't seen each other in a long time. We're prepared and we're happy about it. So, I'm very excited to be able to say that, I'm gonna go there and have some fun. I think that's the main thing. I'm gonna have fun talking with the fans, doing all of that. So it's gonna be pretty good, man. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's going to be a fantastic weekend. Once again, folks, June 7th and 8th, World Golf Village, the River City Wrestling Con. It's the big one every year there. Just keeps getting bigger and better. And, of course, TNT, Terrence and Terrell Hughes, of course, Devon's sons, they're going to be there in action, by the way. So they're going to be kicking some ass there. Devon's going to be there meeting all the friends, signing autographs, the whole 9 yards there. Ric Flair, Bret the Hitman Hart, Thunder Rosa, Sylvia Sanchez from Wow Women of Wrestling. We even have Scotti Sosa, who is one of Devon Dudley's students, taking on the pride of the United Kingdom. We're talking about Aleah James. And those two are on a collision course. It's going to main event. So keep this in mind, folks. These ladies are going to be kicking some ass. Devon, who do you got in that match?
Well, I don't know because Aaliyah, she basically, James, she basically trained with me as well. So, I don't want to take favoritism, but I gotta say, you know, you're not gonna put me on the spot, man.
these are basically your two daughters here, man, and they about to fight now. All right, that's basically what we got going on now.
Yeah, man, you trying to put me in the Lions then.
So you told me you don't want to be the special guest referee?
Hell no. Listen, my mother didn't raise no fool, man. I ain't gonna sit up there and get in between two women that are ready to go at each other's throats and this and that. And that's exactly what's gonna happen, at this event. And when they step in the ring with each other, it's gonna be a war. Some words were said on the show, and words were said on social media. So it's gonna be a happening.
It's definitely going to be happening. And I got to tell you, I got to tip my hat to you, Devon. You have TNT, Terrence and Terrell. Those are your boys there. Their main event in one day, and then you have Scotti and Aleah James main event in one day. So this is like a Devon Wrestling Academy showcase, so to speak. Here, how the hell you got main events both days, bro?
So, well, that's what happens when you're a 24-time World Tag Team Champion, the most decorated tag team champion. I know people tired of hearing me say that, but guess what? I can say it because I've done it and I've lived it.
You see that, folks? So if you want to live your dream of becoming the next pro wrestling superstar, you definitely got to check out Devon Dudley Wrestling Academy. Devon, what's the best way folks can reach out to get involved with the Wrestling Academy and learn from one of the greatest of all time?
Absolutely. You can go to my website, devondudley.com, devondudley.com. Look at the information there, or you can go on Instagram at Devon Dudley Academy and inbox me and come on down, check it out, and let's get your future started right in professional wrestling.
It definitely, folks, 2 years in a row, students from the Devon Academy main eventing. There's something to be said about that. When you have all these big stars in the building, and yet, folks who are getting the right kind of training, they manage to earn spots like that. You could be next. So definitely check out Devon Wrestling Academy. Something strange happened this week, Devon. You had former two-time WWE NXT champion Trick Williams. He just won the TNA World Championship by defeating Joe Hendry. You're a guy who's in both Hall of Fames, WWE and TNA. You're a guy who's decorated in both companies. Did you ever imagine in your wildest dreams, first of all, that the TNA World Championship would actually be defended on a WWE PLE? And then not only that, that a WWE contracted wrestler would win the TNA World Championship. Did you ever think that something like that would ever happen?
No, and I never thought I knew it never was going to happen under Vince's regime because Vince, put the illusion out there not just to the public but to us that no other wrestling organization existed but the WWE. Of course, we all knew that wasn't true, but that's what he projected. And so, do I think that this would have happened under the Vince regime? No. Do I see it happen under the Hunters regime? Absolutely. Everybody has to understand Vince for the 80s, 90s, the Attitude Era, and leading up to the PG era, and of course to him leaving the company, you know, in my opinion, you have to be relevant with the times and you have to kind of go with the punches. And sometimes a change is needed. And he was big on that, especially with talent. He would like to keep it fresh and new and all of that. But I don't think Vince realized the scenario of actually joining forces with an organization like TNA and how good that would have been for business. Yeah, I also feel that he just wasn't feeling that. And I don't think he would have if Vince was still in charge. I don't think you would have seen the collaboration between TNA and WWE. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, but I just don't see it because I know how the organization was run, not only from a talent standpoint, but from behind the scenes. And I know things that were said. So, it's almost weird too because it was almost like NXT was his as well, even though it was Triple H's baby, but you know, it was his company as well. And you know, there were times when guys would come up from NXT and, he would say things like, well, will they be over? Do the fans even know who they are? And some of us would look at each other and go, yeah, they do. Are you not familiar with what's going on social media and how the people are projecting these people? There was one, I could be wrong. Don't quote me on this. I could be wrong, but I know it was said about, could have been said about Oscar at the time. I might be wrong. So I don't want the dirt sheets to start quoting me and saying that Vince didn't think Oscar was going to get over. It was one of those things where I think was said was, will she get the response that she that they want her to get? And I remember we all looked at each other and goes, yeah, she will, you know. And sure enough, we were right about that. I basically I do know for a fact that it was said about Enzo and Cass. Because, of course, they basically started a program with us and they got over like $1 million. They got over like $1 million. So it was something that Vince was out of tune with. He didn't know. And, Vince only concentrated on the WWE and that was it. He might have heard rumblings about different people and organizations to bring them in, but I don't think Vince really fully understand the magnitude of how other wrestlers were getting over in other companies. I just don't think he did.
Which is so interesting. It's so interesting that a guy could be that successful only focusing on what's happening in his wheelhouse and not really looking outside of that. Uh, Most of the time, that it's not possible for you to be successful without understanding the overall marketplace. You
Yeah, I
know,
mean, it's, and at one point in time, I got to think in the 80s and 90s, he wasn't like that. It was only until he got older and it seemed like he became out of touch with how the public was perceiving pro wrestling at the time. We always said this, everybody that worked behind the scenes or even talent, Vince is the type of person where he really doesn't care about, I don't know, and I hate to say that word, doesn't care. I'm sure he cared, but it didn't interest him to actually, um, you know, want to indulge in other companies like that. He felt that the WWE was his baby and that was the only thing that was going to shine and be worthy enough to get over. And that's just the way it was with him. But again, in the 80s and 90s, I saw a documentary on A&E, I believe it was. I just don't remember which one it was, but where Hunter and Sean, when they started doing the DX, Vince didn't like it. And, it was at that time when, people were being rebellious, and they were actually, the bad guys were being cheered, the good guys were being booed. Point in case, Stone Cold Steve Austin. He came in as a bad guy. And then all of a sudden he got over like $1 million as a babyface, and Steve Austin was born. It's just hard for me to believe that Vince actually looked at other companies as being anything but successful if they weren't in the WWE or getting over. And again, I'm sure if he was on this radio, if he was on this podcast, he would probably say I was wrong. But when you look at things that had transpired after the Attitude Era, how many people fell from the wayside because, he just woke up that morning and said, well, they're not getting over, so we're not going to use them anymore. It was a weird thing when you actually looked at it. And like you said, you would think a man of his knowledge and, what he has for professional wrestling would see that. But at that time, he really didn't. And this is why you needed fresh people in there to actually tell Vince no and not have a bunch of yes man telling him, yeah, you're right, Vince, you're right. But Hunter was the one that actually was like, no, this is works, that's works. And Hunter had a fight. Hunter had to fight to get a lot of things that he wanted. But again, to actually sit there and to say that the DX gimmick wasn't going to work and the society wasn't ready for it, we all know that wasn't true. because DX blew up, and it was one of the most over things in the world. Hell, people, you know, my little brothers were getting in trouble for going to school, going suck it, with the hand gesture and all of that. And you hear in these documentaries how all these kids were getting sent to the principal's office because of that. Not to mention grown people were doing that as well. So it's one of those things where you needed a fresh mind, you needed a fresh talent, and that's the way it is.
Let me tell you something. As somebody who is part of that age group, middle school, high school, what have you, during the whole suck it era, so to speak. Yeah, everybody was running around doing that and doing it in school and getting detention for doing it. So
Oh,
that
I'm
was a
so
real
glad.
thing
Listen, I'm glad I was already done with school at that point because,
because you would
good
have been
God, I
going
know
crazy.
I would have been going down the hall, suck it, and God forbid if a young girl was walking by me and I went suck it, you definitely going to the principal's office at that point,
No
and it had
question.
nothing, and you're not telling them to suck it like in the sexual, you're just doing the DX thing, and that's the way it was back then.
Yeah, it's true. And listen, the way that you be doing your testify and you do the cross, you spin around and all. When you really feel it, you start spinning around and stuff. You'd be jumping around like X Pac doing the suck it if you were in my age group back then.
And
Please.
the funny thing about it was I was at DDP's house. He invited me to his house, and it was a fantastic experience. And it was one of those things where getting my body back to where it needs to be. And he was tweaking all the stuff that I was doing on my own and the things that I was doing with Bobby Fisher. He basically was tweaking it. And it was like one of those things where I finally had the nerve to tell him, when I did that little spin around in a circle, I got it from you. I
Oh,
got it from you. I got it from DDP. I was in ECW. I don't know if you remember in WCW when Dallas used to come to the ring, he would get in the ring and then kind of like go around in a circle pointing to the people,
yep,
and then go bang.
yep, yep.
And one day I think we did a run-in on Balls Mahoney and Axel Rodden, and I was feeling it so much. And the crowd was like booing us, of course, something that we wanted because we were heels. And I felt this energy in me. And I remember just feeling it and didn't even realize I was doing it. And I started doing what he was doing in the ring. And, I would go F you as opposed to, the diamond thing. And I watched it back on TV and I went, I like that. So every time we did a run in, I would go in there and do that. And then it got to the point where towards the end of my ECW run, going into my WWE run, that was when I made it my own and just did a little dance, in between after the what's up, and then we'll do the sign of the cross.
And here I was thinking you were getting the Holy Ghost, all right, and you over here just mimicking Dallas. What the hell's going on?
Yeah, when I told Dallas that, he was like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah." I said, "No, no BS, man." I was like, "I'm serious. I got it from you, but I just took it and made it my own." And it's weird. I said, when I remember when I first started the DDP yoga, or right before I'd started it, because my back was in so much turmoil that I remember trying to do it and I couldn't do it anymore because the one leg, with the knees and stuff, when they cut through the nerves and the tendons and all of that, you lose a lot.
Mm.
And I had lost a lot. So trying to, turn on that one leg was very, very hard. It was only until I started the DDP yoga where I was able to do it again. Um, and not have that pain and I built up the nerves and the tendons enough to where I was able to go in there and do it. Again, I'm not trying to get on this whole DDP thing because we've done this before in other episodes, but if you are hurt in any way, shape, or form, and you are dreading surgery or anything like that, I think you should try it. Try the DDP yoga. It could probably save and change your life in ways that you could never imagine. And at 52 years old right now and having the back surgery and the things that they were doing to correct the problems that I have with my back, it helped tremendously. So, again, all hats off to DDP. Thank you very much for getting me where I am. And again, I can't stress being with him. We did the cold plunge. We documented everything. We did the cold plunge. I mean, it was weird because after I did the cold plunge, then he goes, "All right, we're gonna go to the weights." And he had these like power cuffs that he put on my arms where normally, if you're doing biceps, you probably working out or starting off with 25 and probably end up with like, 100-pound dumbbell curling. And you put those power cuffs on, brother, just do 20 and you'll probably be able to do 10 because the power cuffs helps you to really your strict form and this and that, and it sends the blood flow through the arms, which allows the muscles to breathe, and it gives a longer pump. So it was one of those things where I'm up there going, "We're only going to use 10 pounds," and he goes, "Oh yeah, watch." He goes, "We'll go up as much as 25 to 30." I go, "Pfft, I'm gonna ace this, man." After the first set, I was like, "Okay, Dallas." I'm breathing heavy. I'm like, God, my arms are tired. They are ripped. But he found the science to be able to help the body to get to where it needs to be. So my hat goes off to Dallas.
Hat goes off to Dallas. We've said it a bunch of times, folks. DDP Yoga, you got to check it out. You got to check out DDP Yoga, regardless of what level of fitness you're in. Literally, Butterbean is a great example too. This guy couldn't even walk anymore,
I
and now
felt
he's got
so
his
bad.
mobility. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
felt so bad when I saw him. Um, I felt so bad in terms of watching him walk because it was it was it was terrible, man. He was trying to walk and he was barely moving. He was hunched over and this and that. I saw him in Vegas. Brother's walking tall. He's walking straight. I mean, this is the man that was on his way out, you know? And when you ask him about it, he's almost in tears because he knew where he was before he started the yoga. So, you know, you just got to make time. If you want your body to feel right, if you want to get back on the track that you used to be on, then take the 15, 20 minutes to do it. There's nothing there's nothing out there that's more important than getting your health back to where it needs to be, especially if you have kids. And I've got young kids. So, I want to be able to still go out there and play basketball. I want to still go out there and run. Now, I haven't been able to beat my 17-year-old in a race in a long time, but I'm working my way up to it. That's my goal.
Well, you're getting there, brother. I mean, you lost all that weight, and now your mobility is back so well. I'm telling you, man. It
Mhm.
say whatever you want out there. And Devon, I know you keep going back and forth on this, but I still believe that you could step in the ring right now. You could main event a PLE right now. Okay, that's how fresh and nimble you are, especially compared to the last couple of years, man. You got it back, brother.
I got it back, but one of the things that I'm fearful of, and I told you this, it's two things actually, I'm fearful of is the fact that, I don't want other, discs to start to collapse and this and that. So I'm not saying that, you know, I wouldn't go in there and do a match and this and that, because there's already talks about me and Bubba getting back in the ring, doing a match with one of our rivals from the past. But, to be on a full-time basis, I don't know if I want to do that. I like the nostalgia. I like going in there, like say you go in there today and then you don't see the ring again for another 6 months to a year. I like doing stuff like that. But man, that schedule, that grind, going in and out of airports and in and out of planes and in and out of rental cars, oof, that beats your body up more than actual wrestling.
Sure, sure. Yeah, that extended travel, that's a young man's sport in and of itself. Absolutely.
Yes, Lord.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, we got off the path. Let me bring it home for a second with the final point. Congratulations, Trick Williams, the first
Yes.
ever in history WWE contracted superstar to win the TNA World Championship. It's never been done before. This is groundbreaking, historic, huge. So congratulations, Trick. And I like Trick, man. I really, really like Trick. He has a bright future,
I,
in my opinion.
I love Trick, and he was Carmelo's sidekick for a long time, but then he worked his way up to where he is now, and I'm so happy for him. You know, some people don't understand that sometimes the position that you're in doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stay in that position. You can work your way to where you want to be, but you just got to put the time and the effort and the fight in there to go and do it. And that's exactly what he did. So again, like you said, my hat goes off to him. Very proud of that young man. Very good friends with him. He allowed me in his video against, with boy, when he was wrestling against Ethan Page. I mean, it was one of those things where, I was very honored to be a reverend in that one and was hoping that it would revive the Reverend Devon gimmick. So I'll be able to come back and, if not wrestle as Reverend Devon, but just go in there and start preaching to the masses of people in the arenas.
Well, shoot, Trick might need you to come back and preach again soon. Now, come on,
I told
you
that
know.
I told that brother, I said, whenever you want me, the collar will come back on in no time.
I love it. I love testify to that, brother. I love it.
My brother.
I love it. Something interesting happened that has become top news, and there's a lot of speculation, and the dirt sheets and everybody they want to give their opinions. And you and I were talking about this offline. It's always interesting when fans give their opinion about stuff when they really don't have enough information to even have a proper opinion, at least an informed opinion. And I always tell people, hey, pro wrestling is a business before anything else. So even
Absolutely.
though you get wrapped up in the storylines and the good versus evil, and you want to punish this one for doing that, I want to punish Devon Dudley because I can't believe what he did to Balls Mahoney, and he should lose his job over that. And it's like, okay, that's come on, you know what I mean? That's a storyline. Like, we take it easy,
Mhm.
you know.
Listen,
Um,
listen, I don't mean to cut you off, but I hear some people on certain radio stations that, you know, and I'm not saying any names, but they get all invested into the storyline where if they get so riled up and they get so upset, it's like, dude, it's a work. Come on now. It's a work. I understand you have passion about what you're saying, but come on, man, it's a work. This is what we do. I mean, come on. And if you're on the other side of the microphone, if you're on the side of the microphone, and you should know that. So to get that heavily invested where you start, going off, I'm just like, come on, man.
it
Enough
gets to be
now.
a little much. It gets to be a little much, right?
It really
It's
does.
like,
It really
yeah,
does.
yeah. Because then you start wondering, wait, I don't think this guy is in on the joke here. Like, what the hell's wrong with him?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, yeah, that's a whole other story to go down. But let me throw this at you. WWE announced that they are moving WrestleMania from the original place that it was announced to take place. So New Orleans, Louisiana, 2026 WrestleMania. It's already been booked. They have all the information out there, marketing the whole 9 yards. WrestleMania is happening in New Orleans in 2026. Well, last week that changed, and it was announced that it's being pulled out of New Orleans and being brought back to Las Vegas, Nevada. So before I give my perspective on that, let me just ask you, Devon, from a city to city standpoint, because I'm a Vegas guy. I love Vegas. It's one of the places I love to vacation in. I've never been to New Orleans, no disrespect. I've heard it's very nice. I heard the food is great, the culture is great. From your perspective, not only as a talent and as a superstar, but even as a tourist, um, how do the two cities compare for you in terms of experience?
Well, there's no comparison, again, I'm with you. I love New Orleans, the food, the culture, the people. It's great, but Vegas is in a different world. It really is. It's in a different world of its own, and in my opinion, I don't think anything compares to Vegas. I mean, the party life, the entertainment life, so many things that you hear, that goes on in Vegas. It's true. As Kurt would say, it's damn true. But,
It's damn true.
it really is. But, to me, back to back, I think it's good. It reminds me of WrestleMania 4 and 5. So if I'm correct, yes, WrestleMania 4 and 5 in Atlantic City. at the Trump Plaza. You had the first one, you had the tournament where Savage won the title, after Hogan left to go do no holds barred. So they needed somebody to come in and to actually be able to carry the company, and it was Macho Man at the time, to do that, and they drew huge numbers in Atlantic City. And in my opinion, Atlantic City was kind of like dying. I mean, you always heard of Atlantic City being the next best thing if you can't get to Vegas. And somewhere along the line, it started to die. The economy started to really fizzle out. Um, WrestleMania comes and it just brings new life to it. Now I don't know why Vince went back to back with um Trump Plaza to host WrestleMania there, 2 years in a row, but it worked because the next year was Hogan versus Savage.
Yep, great
And
point.
and I thought it was really good. So this might be on the same line, on along the same lines as what happened back in 88 and 89. You having back to back venues being used for WrestleMania. I mean, again, they can do huge numbers. It will attract the people, but you better save up and because it's gonna be expensive. It's
It's
not gonna be
definitely going to
some
be
walk in the
expensive.
park.
Yeah,
Hmm.
those resort fees, they hit you with that, and it's like, whoa, where did that come from?
Exactly.
Definitely
Exactly.
expensive. Here's the thing. I've been seeing all the discussion about it, and the consensus is WWE just wants to make more money, so they pulled out and they brought it to Vegas, and people in their narrow understanding of how things work, they just leave it at that. And I know better than that personally. Now, full disclosure, I didn't talk to anybody in WWE. I didn't ask you either, Devon, if you knew any inside scoop on or anything like that. But I do have experience not only in state, but as it relates to this in municipal government. And I'm a person that is well versed in understanding budgets, in understanding trends, and understanding um, what can and cannot happen from a financial standpoint and why. A lot of times you just got to dig into the budget and you'll get a very good understanding of where a city is at and what their capacity is for everything, including hosting major worldwide events. And WrestleMania
Hmm.
is a worldwide spectacle. People from all over the world are showing up on a city now for a week, and they're going to spend money and they're going to use resources. They're going to generate a lot of tax revenue, but it also requires a lot of support from that city. You got to have
Right.
enough police officers. You got to
Hmm.
have enough EMTs. You got to have enough firefighters. Your roads have to be in certain shape in order for transportation. Your public transportation has to be on a certain level. Do you have enough Uber and cab drivers? You know what I mean? It's there's so much that. Do you have enough people working in that city? Or will you have enough people working in that city to handle the services such as food, transportation, cleaning, things of that nature, right? So all of that stuff is boring, and a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't get into politics," but it's like when you understand how a city is funded and what can happen when they don't have proper funding, that can give you some insight on whether or not they can host major events. So I
Hmm.
want to just throw this out there in relation to New Orleans, the current situation there. New Orleans is considered what's called a sinkhole city. So what that means is because they have more bills than available assets, literally they're $2.1 billion in the hole right now, Devon. Think about that. 2.1 billion. There are most cities in this entire country where $2.1 billion would allow you to pay every bill for the city to operate. Your trash, your
Hmm.
police, your EMS, all that stuff. $2.1 billion can cover most cities in the country. New Orleans is short that amount. It would cost every taxpayer $18,300 a piece extra in order to make up for that shortfall. Like that's how bad it is right now. Do you have an extra 20 grand laying around, Devon? Probably not, right? At least not for that.
Listen,
Not for that.
I got 7 kids, so what did that
E-
tell you?
Exactly. Exactly. Brother, the pensions, right? That's one of the major contributing factors to this. So you're talking firefighters, police, educators. The pension, they're $1.5 billion in the hole. 388.6 million dollars of unfunded retiree healthcare obligations. So all those folks who were retired and who are still alive, they're not even paying for their healthcare right now, or at least the bill is almost half $1 billion, brother. That's how
Hmm.
bad they are financially. And unfortunately, it ain't going to get any better anytime soon. So there's a lot of tightening of the belt. Their bond rating as a city has gone down. They used to be an A plus. They've gone down to an A, and it may actually drop even more than that. So what that means is when they go out to borrow money, just like any of us go out for a loan or something like that, cities go out and they borrow money in order to take care of major capital projects. If your bond rating drops, you're going to be borrowing money at a much higher interest rate, which means it's going to cost
Hmm.
you more money. So you're still going to
Absolutely.
remain in the hole, right?
Hmm.
So I say all that to say this. It is very possible, and not only possible, it's likely that New Orleans wasn't able to even cover the site fee for WWE to exist in their city for a whole week and put on something like WrestleMania. They probably aren't
Right.
even able to cover the site fee. And my assumption, no one told me this, but this is just based on my professional experience. My assumption is they let WWE know that, and WWE is like, hey, if you can't handle this year, then we'll push it off for a year and we'll take it back to Las Vegas because we can do that. You know what I mean? But we're not going to take less from you. So either you can handle it or you can't. And New Orleans is like, yeah, man, let's put it off for a year. Okay, no problem. And that's the end of it. But this isn't a WWE pulls out just out of nowhere like that and what have. When you make a deal with a city to host a major event, there's a lot of paperwork that's involved in that. If WWE pulled out of the deal, I'm pretty sure they would have to pay in order to pull out of the deal. There would be some kind of penalty for that. And since WWE is part of a publicly traded company, we would know that. There would have to be a disclosure about that. So, for all of you out there, step outside of your bubble, come into the real world for a second, and understand it's bigger than what's in front of you. New Orleans crime rate is through the roof right now. How are their airports doing right now? Do they have enough people staffing their airports? You see what's going on in New Jersey with their issue with air traffic controllers. There's a trickle down effect to that because if flights are getting canceled because you don't have the right people staffing, handling the airport needs, ain't nobody coming in or getting out of your city, at least not through the air. So
Exactly.
all of that, yeah, yeah. So all of that is infrastructure. And if your infrastructure isn't right, you damn sure shouldn't be bringing in major events. Now, here's the last part that I'll say to you, Devon, because I always check myself. I went back and I did a complete search of every major event that is scheduled to happen for the rest of 2025 and for the year 2026 in New Orleans, Louisiana. And guess what? Not a single major international event like a big sporting event or anything like that. It's mostly food festivals and minor things like that. Mardi Gras season, which it's going to bring some tourists, but nothing big. There's literally UFC is running literally for one day. Holloway versus Poirier on July 19th of this year. That's UFC 318. The running of the bulls is happening. Essence Festival, which I think they do every year. New Orleans food, wine and food experience. These are all nice events, but they're not as big as WrestleMania. So,
I don't think anything is as big as WrestleMania.
well, you got to go Super Bowl, but even then, WrestleMania is probably generating more over the week, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. I mean, the money that's coming in for WrestleMania is ridiculous.
yeah, yeah, hundreds of millions of dollars easily in tax revenue, which can help a city. But in order to get that, you first have to have a certain level of infrastructure in place. You got to have enough people to work. The other thing is with people getting deported and all this other stuff, what does their workforce look like? They may not have the bodies to handle some of these jobs that, you and I may not necessarily want to do unless we have to do it. That all contributes, man. So I just say that to say this, folks: step outside of your box for a change and think beyond what's in front of you, because there's usually more to the story than the easiest answer, so to speak. Anything to
Well,
add to that, Devon?
well, even if the WWE did pull out, let's just say they pulled out because of money wise. Well, guess what? They're allowed to do that. Why would you, if you don't think the company is going to generate the money that you feel that it should, why stay on a sinking ship in terms of that?
Yeah,
Um, if it's just hard to believe that some people just don't understand or get it. And if there are certain things behind the scenes that you don't know about, and nor should you know about, um, of why they changed the venue the way they did. I mean, again, it's one of those things where we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So just wait till another ENA special comes on or AME special comes on. You'll learn.
exactly. But everybody doesn't have to have an opinion either. And I think sometimes these goofballs who don't know what they're talking about, and I'm going to call a name out. Dave Meltzer is a great example of that. He acts as if he has to always have an answer to everything, and it's strange to me because what we don't you hardly ever hear Meltzer bringing on an expert um, to educate him on something that he doesn't know about. He always positions himself as the expert on everything. He knows TV, he knows business, he knows everything about wrestling, he knows what's happening behind the scenes. He knows what Devon Dudley had for breakfast last night or yesterday morning. It's like this guy's the expert on everything, right? Which is whenever a person presents themselves like that, then you know they're full of crap. It's just ridiculous
Mhm.
as far as I'm concerned. No one knows everything. You got to, and if you heard what I said, I did the research. I looked it up. I'm giving you numbers that you can go back and verify yourself. This is not an opinion. These are all public record numbers based on a city and their financial situation, which helps inform my opinion on the situation. But it's just one of those things, though, man. Everybody doesn't have to have an opinion. No, it's not because Triple H doesn't like New Orleans. He prefers Las Vegas, so he's gonna stupid. You see the stuff that people say, Devon. It's ridiculous. But
And they
anyway,
think they know everything and they don't.
they don't know. They don't even know their ear from their elbow half the damn time. But that's a whole other story. Um, before I let you go, man, I wanted to give some room to discuss the passing of Sabu, a guy who you spent many years sharing locker rooms with, and someone that you've been in the ring with, and what have you. Um, just however you want to talk about it, man. I mean, what's your initial feelings on the passing of one of your brothers?
It's very hard because it's never easy, especially when you've worked with them for so long. You've had memories, you've had laughter, you've even had sad moments, and the unfortunate part is, that brother's no longer with us, but man, did he leave a legacy in this business, especially in ECW. If it wasn't for him, Bubba and I wouldn't have the tables. He was the original guy that did the tables. We just put our own twist to it and went to WWE with it.
Sabu was so influential on so many different people. I didn't realize he was the one that really inspired you guys to get the tables, but it makes sense because he
Yeah,
was the table.
because he was doing it in ECW. He was doing it way before me and Bubba even started to do tables. So we've always given Sabu credit. We never said we were the inventors of the tables. We just took it and made it fun. Sabu, when he did it, he made it oh my God moment. Like he somebody's gonna die from this, because of the stuff that Sabu would do with these tables. It was just, man, it was something, man. It really was. He was a great guy. um I always said, when I was in the ring with him, he would hit you. When he would punch you, he'd punch you in threes. No, the first punch he would hit, he wouldn't hit you. The second one he wouldn't hit, and right before he threw the third one, he'd be like, "Sorry," and he'd be like, "What did you say sorry for?" Bang, and he hit you right in the nose. I was like, "Oh my God!" I'm like, Sabu. He said, "I said sorry." I said, "You said it before you swung." He's like, "Yeah, that's just me."
He was a
You
different
know,
kind of
that
cat, man.
he really really was. He was trained by his uncle, the original Sheik. Um, he grew up in this business very very old school. And he kept that with him until the end. He didn't tolerate no nonsense. He couldn't have no young boy come to him and go, well, we're gonna do this. Can we do this? And Sabu would be like, no, shut up, sit down. Respect. That was just the way Sabu was, and every right to be like that. Because again, he was taught by his uncle, the original Sheik, who was big on respect, and you had to respect him, or if not, he was gonna kill you. You know. But Sabu, man, I loved tremendously. He was a good guy. And when we started doing these autograph signings, I started seeing him on the road at these autograph signings. And something said, take pictures with him, show memories. And that's exactly what I did. You can see a lot of the pictures of me and Sabu on Instagram, hanging out with Rob Van Dam. We did so many good matches, not only in ECW, but we did great matches, in Japan together, where we made history. So, man, I'm gonna miss that brother something awful. It's gonna feel weird it's gonna feel weird going to these shows now and not seeing him there because I was so used to seeing him all the time. And now we're not gonna see him anymore.
If Sabu was in his prime in 2025, with the way that the wrestling landscape is today, he'd probably be the biggest star in the business, right?
I would think so. But Sabu, he did what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it. With respect, of course, but if he didn't agree with the powers to be, the upper, the office, so to speak, he would speak his mind. No, I ain't doing that. Fuck you. That was Sabu. You know, he
That's
if he
deep.
believed in if he believed in something passionate, then he would do it. He didn't care if he got fired. He didn't care if he got reprimanded for it. He would just, nope, this is the way it's got to be done. This is the way I like to do it. But he did it in a respectful way. It was never in a disrespectful way. But again, some of these clown promoters, think they're the Vince McMahon or what have you, and they're not. And Sabu would let them know. That's just the type of person Sabu was. If he didn't like you, you knew it. Because he would tell you. You wouldn't have to guess on it. He would just let you know. And that was the way Sabu was. And I always respected him for always speaking his mind and never letting anybody change it if he felt passionate about it. And, not that, and again, I retract that statement, not that he did whatever he wanted to do. In a sense, he did, but he always did what was best for business.
Deep, deep. A lot of information has come out about Sabu. We all knew he was banged up. You see him at live events and stuff like that, signings. We knew he was banged up. Everybody's banged up at this point. Um, Getting him to that last match that he wrestled for GCW, and the circumstances surrounding that. Joey Janela put out some information that definitely caused some controversy and what have you. I'm not going to get too deep into that, but I just want to speak from a general standpoint. In 2025, Devon, where's the line? Where is the line when you know a guy, like say, a guy's not going to pass a physical, let's say, if you do a physical to him? Where's the line where you say, you know what, man, I just can't have you in the ring, as opposed to, we got 2,000 fans out there. It's the biggest house we ever drew. You got to wrestle. We got to get you out there somehow. Where's the line in that, man?
Well, you know, it's hard, man, because we're old school guys. When I tore my Achilles heel, I was in the ring 5 days later.
Wow.
You take me up, and I'll be out there. That's what all of us from the Attitude Era and the ECW era. We just went out there and did it. We didn't care. Not saying it was the smartest thing to do because a lot of times it wasn't. And a lot of us is paying for it now because we never let the body heal, you know? Um, but it was just one of those things where that's what we did. That's what we knew. That's how we grew up in the business. You know, nowadays, like for instance, the whole thing with the NXT and me not being able to do anything. WWE was very, very um adamant about not letting me even be up on the ring because I didn't get clearance to get in the ring. And it wasn't clearance because the doctor said no, it's because we never went to the doctor. I was never told that I had to go to the doctor to get cleared in order to be able to do whatever little bit that I was going to do in NXT. And, they apologized and said, they dropped the ball. They should have told me and this and that because we could have did more stuff, in that match with Trick and Bubba and even Carter. And, we could have did more. We could have made it even more exciting. But WWE is just being, careful. They don't want a death in the ring because we've had deaths in the ring, within the past, 10, 15 years, you've had people dying in the ring because their health wise just wasn't good and nobody knew. So I like the fact that they're taking precaution now to make sure that we're in the shape that we're supposed to be in, but even back in the day with WWE, back during the Attitude Era. You broke your arm, you wore a cast, and you did something to protect your opponent in the ring so the cast wouldn't affect them and, it would protect you. So, it's hard to say, man. It was a different time, different era. It's just sad that I wouldn't say sad, maybe again, the wrong choice of words, but it was just that once you got to the new era, they weren't doing that anymore. And us, old guys from that era, we didn't want to accept that. Hell, I'm fine. I'm fine. Just take me up. Don't worry about it. I remember getting busted open, you know, in my head, on top of my head, they had 5 stitches in the cut and 13 to close me up, you know, and it was like right in a really soft, it was like right in a really prominent place in my head where, I could have been gushing blood if I got hit. But I went out there, they bandaged me up, they taped me up, they put as much cushion, to protect myself. But nowadays, they won't do that. They don't want to take the chance of you getting hurt and anything going bad. They don't want to do that. And, I can't blame them. I understand their way of thinking. But I do know I was upset and, pissed off when I couldn't do anything in NXT. And again, it wasn't because my back said no or I couldn't do it. It was the fact that I didn't go to the doctor and get clear. But again, no one told me to do that. Because again, this era where it's trial and error, you're learning. And that was something that should have been discussed when we decided to add me to that match, and it wasn't. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to do anything in it. But you know what? It was okay because I still got the pop, you know, and still got the reaction I was supposed to get. And I was able to share a moment with those brothers in the ring. So, it is what it is, but it's a different time, different era, and you got to accept it.
Safety and life over profit. I'll just leave it at that. But once again, rest in peace, Sabu. Heart goes out to his family, all his loved ones, including you, Devon. It's tough, man. It's tough to and such a young guy. You hate to see a young guy go. That's the tough part,
Yeah.
you know. So
Hmm.
please tell somebody you love them out there, folks. Please tell somebody you love them out there because you never know. Unfortunately.
Absolutely.
Anyway, Devon, tell us about the YouTube, man. How's it going over there on the mean streets of YouTube?
Oh man, it's going good, man. It really is. We got some exciting ones coming up. Um, we might even start using some WWE guys to come in on the show. I'm trying to, trying to get clearance with that. I'm trying to make sure that everything is okay with that. We're in the process of working with them in order to be able to have a relationship with those guys and things like that. I'm just very happy that this YouTube thing is really taking off for me. I'm just ecstatic. Never thought in a million years because I knew nothing about this stuff. I didn't know, getting to 100,000 subscribers in a month. was big. I had no idea, but now, I'm happy to say that I'm just, ecstatic. I'm at 152,557 subscribers right now. We've got a lot of sponsors that are coming, a lot of sponsors that are, looking to come aboard and, you know, have be on the show to sponsor their products and things like that. So I'm happy. I'm happy about that. Really happy.
I'll tell you right now, man, once again, are you convinced that the Devon Dudley brand is pretty hot in 2025?
Well, let's just say I'm convinced that there are some people out there, or a lot of people, like to say, that do like to hear what I have to say and do like to continue to see me. You get your haters out there, but I haven't seen any hateful things that have in the comments below. And I thank the people for that. I'm glad that they like what I'm doing. I always get compliments at the signings and this and that. Hey, we watch a YouTube video, freaking excellent job and this and that. So it feels good.
Listen, speaking of which, folks, you can see Devon Dudley at the River City Wrestling Con June 7th and 8th, World Golf Village down there, St. Augustine, Florida. Head over to rivercitywrestlingcon.com to get your tickets. It's literally, they're at 96% sold out. I can't guarantee you'll be able to buy tickets at the doors, folks. You want to get it online just to make sure you're able to be all right. I didn't realize this, Devon, but last year there were no tickets sold at the door; they were sold out. So they're doing it again this year. It's the demand is high. Folks want to see you, Ric Flair. They want to see TNT. They want to see Scotti versus Aleah James. They want to see the whole 9 yards, man. So definitely make sure you get your tickets so you can go see Devon Dudley, get your picture, get your autograph, share a laugh, the whole 9 yards there. Wow. Okay, Birmingham, you're up. You are up. Make sure that you're ready to rock and roll with our man, 5-time Hall of Famer, Mr. Devon Dudley. Can't wait to see you, of course. And as always, folks, Duke Loves Wrestling on Facebook, on Twitter, DukeLovesWrestling@gmail.com. Let me know what you think. Share your questions, your birthday shout-outs, the whole 9 yards. And that's it. What do you got for our word of the week here, Devon?
Disrespect will close doors that apologies can't open. Be careful how you treat people you don't think will need you.
Whew. Testify.
My brother.
Strictly for the culture every day. Step in style in your unique way. Patterns and colors so divine. All about the perfect line. Be yourself, let your spirit fly. In this fashion, you'll touch the sky. Strictly for the culture, brand so fine. Dress to impress and show your shine. Strictly for the culture, every day. Step in style in your unique way.
Visit www.strictlyfortheculture.ca.
Backstage whispers and the crowds roar. From matching giants to legends of yore. Devon's wisdom and Duke's keen view. Every episode feels like it's brand new. Devon and the Duke bring the heat. Wrestling tales knock you off your seat. Tune in now, don't you be late. Wrestling podcast never